Hello everyone, welcome to SIUK India webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We are now live with the University of Bristol. Today we have Jake and Niz with us who will let us know more about this special webinar session. Please feel free to post all the questions in the chat box on the right. We will answer all the questions after the presentation during the Q&A session. So let's start. Over to you, Jake.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much everyone for joining us here today. Let me start just by sharing my screen, and then hopefully you'll be able to see our slides. Okay, so as Deepika mentioned, myself, I'm Jake George. I'm the School International Officer here at the University of Bristol, and I specifically look after students who want to join our accounting and finance programs. And I'm really pleased to be joined on the panel here today by one of our teaching staff, Professor Nezlahan Ozkan, and she's our School International Director as well. So I will be handing over to Nezlahan in just a few slides' time. But before we get underway, I just wanted to give a general introduction to some of the things we'll cover today and a bit more information about Bristol for those of you who might not have heard of us before. So the schedule for today, a quick introduction to Bristol and a quick introduction to the School of Accounting and Finance at the university specifically. I'll then pass over to Nezlahan to talk about our postgraduate programs, including some of the entry requirements and intended learning and career outcomes of them. It'll then come back to me to tell you a bit about the career support that you can expect as a student here at Bristol. I'll then mention about some of the international scholarship opportunities that we have available, and we encourage you to submit your questions throughout today's session, but we'll address those at the end of today's presentation. And if you do have questions beyond today's webinar, obviously you can go to SIUK, but if you did want to contact the university directly, we have our India office, and you can see their contact detail on the bottom right here. And you can also contact me directly if your query is specifically regarding accounting and finance programs, and I'll do my best to help you. Okay, so just a little bit about Bristol before we get underway. You might have heard of the university. We're one of the most prestigious in the UK and in fact the world. So we're ranked very highly in the latest QS rankings. We're in the top 10 in the UK and we're 62nd in the world. We're also very well respected in terms of employability, and in the latest QS rankings for that metric, we were placed world top 50, so 49th in the world. And in the latest graduate market survey results from High Flyers, we were 3rd in the UK as most targeted by top 100 employers. Okay, so moving on, in terms of our facilities here at the university, we have a lot of the things you'd normally expect, like the library spaces, etc. 9 of those, in fact, and some of those are specialists for specific subject areas. And we also have a lot of sort of teaching and learning spaces where you can access 24-hour computer rooms, study spaces where you can book rooms and sort of have more engaging discussions with your peers, etc. But we also have some more specialist facilities specifically for students that want to do business courses or finance courses or accounting courses. So things like our Bloomberg trading room, and this enables you to get some hands-on experience using industry software during your time with us here. Again, it's not all about study whilst you're here. We want you to be happy and healthy. And so for those of you who are interested in things like sports and exercise, either on a competitive level or just a social level, we have a number of facilities and things available at the university, as you can see listed on screen. And many of our student societies also enable you to get involved with these at a more social level, which helps you make friends and settle in at the university. In terms of visiting Bristol, obviously during recent times, it's been harder to travel and perhaps call into the UK and explore the campus for yourself to get a feel for the place and whether it might be a good fit for you. But the next best thing we can offer you is our virtual tour that we have available. So you can use the link that's at the bottom left of your screen there to take a street view tour of the campus and explore some of our exciting landmarks and get a feel for what it would be like to be a student here in Bristol. Okay, so some key factors about the city itself. So for those of you who don't know where we're located, we're in the southwest of England, just here, and we're quite close proximity to London, about 100 miles away. So that's about an hour and a half by train. So for those of you who really want to come to the UK and visit London, as many people do as a tourist hotspot, you can do that easily by living in Bristol, and you don't have the expensive costs of living in London and day-to-day life in London. So it's a much more financially attractive place to live in the UK without missing out on those great opportunities that somewhere like London can provide. Also, if you want to explore other places in the UK, you can do that with many of these key cities and also European destinations just being a short train or plane ride away. It's important when you come to a city to study for university that you really like the place that you're at, not just for study, but as a place to live. And Bristol has a number of accolades, as the city itself. So we were the first we were the UK's greenest city in 2019. We're the third most cultural and creative city. We have a number of parks and green spaces, so over 400 in fact. So if you want to get away from the city, have some nice relaxing space to study and de-stress, then we have that available to you too. We're also a very trendy city. We were voted coolest in the UK in 2017, and we're also the #1 place to live outside of London. In terms of things to do, this is just a very brief overview, but we have a number of world-class concert venues, theatres, museums. We're also very famous for street art. So you might have heard of an artist called Banksy, and his pieces go for millions of pounds. As I mentioned before, a number of parks and green spaces, so you're never too far away from nature if you prefer that side of things. Also great for shopping. We have a number of independent shops, cafes, restaurants, as well as your usual high street chains in some of our larger shopping centres. And we're also well known for our events and festivals. So you can see the Bristol Balloon Fiesta at the top right here, which is just one of the summer events that we have here in the city. Now, moving on to our school in particular, so the School of Accounting and Finance at the University of Bristol. We have a number of sort of key USPs and a bit of history. So David Solomons was actually only the third full-time accounting professor in the UK. And he was one of our professors here at the University of Bristol, and he went on to become the president of the American Accounting Association. Here at the School of Accounting and Finance, we also have a very societal focus as opposed to quite a direct business focus. So our school is embedded within the Faculty of Social Sciences and Law. And this means that our teaching and research tends to focus on our core disciplines, but also within the context of how that fits into the wider societal roles. So it's really putting our subject matter into context. You're not just learning the theory. We also have really impactful research. So many of our staff are research active. And in the latest so Research Excellence Framework, we were voted 5th in the UK for research impact. And then we are also very student focused. So we have a distinct teaching focused career pathway for our academic staff, not just research focused. So our staff are very good at teaching and not just research. And this means that we have things that we pride ourselves on, such as small class sizes for things like tutorials and seminars. So you can expect a more engaging teaching environment. So why should you choose accounting and finance at the University of Bristol in particular? Well, we're a top 10 UK university, as I mentioned before, and 62nd in the world. So you know you're coming to a prestigious university that employers will recognise. Our teaching and research is conducted in close collaboration with the financial services sector. And as I mentioned before, we're ranked top 5 in the UK for research impact, with 78% of our research being world leading or internationally excellent. You've also got strong employment prospects, so you can expect a good return on your investment. Bristol is one of the largest financial centres in the UK, so we have offices for the big 4 companies, Big Four accounting firms, as well as headquarters for some of those large financial service companies like Hargreaves Lansdown. And so it's not surprising really that Bristol graduates are among the most 50 targeted by employers globally. And we're also among the highest paid, with our alumni being the third most targeted by top UK employers. And that includes firms in this sector such as PwC and KPMG. So that was quite a fast whistle-stop tour about our school and the university. But I'm going to hand over to my colleague Neslihan now to tell you about our postgraduate programs. So I'll ask Neslihan to share her screen.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Let me share my screen. Okay, welcome to the introductory session for the University of Bristol School of Accounting and Finance. In my part, what I will try to do is I will try to provide you with some information overview of our master programs, postgraduate programs. At Bristol, at the School of Accounting and Finance, we have the following master programs: Master in Accounting and Finance, Master in Accounting, Finance and Management, Master in Banking, Regulation and Financial Stability, Master in Finance and Investment. As you can see, from the title of those master programs, you would expect some overlaps across those different programs. But as you will see, there are also distinctive characteristics that are unique to each master program. So that will be clearer as I go through each slide. Let's start with Master in Accounting and Finance program. What do we do in this program? Sorry. This program is mainly for students who did their undergraduates in accounting or finance, or both accounting, because there are some undergraduate programs in accounting and finance. So if you are someone who had an undergraduate degree in accounting and finance, and if you want to build on your undergraduate knowledge, improving your technical skills and maybe pursuing a career in as an academic, or if you would like to pursue a career, professional career in accounting and finance as a practitioner in industry, management consultancy, or some policy kind of work, then this master program could be something that you might be interested. In terms of learning outcomes, what is it that you are going to learn? As you would expect, this master program heavily relies on academic literature, in the sense that we do not only stick with the textbooks, but we also use some academic articles which provide you with wider perspective in terms of recent developments in accounting and finance. What is it that we recently know in terms of boundary of our knowledge in finance? So you will be very well informed by studying those modules in accounting and finance. And in terms of skills, your technical skills will improve, as well as your analytical skills, because you are going to discuss some conceptual problems, conceptual issues, as well as technical issues. And you will learn about quantitative research methods, data analytics, data analysis. So, and you will have lots of opportunities using different programs, for example, Stata, SAS, those kind of softwares are used as part of data analytics in different modules in this program. And career destination, you might ask, okay, if I study in this master program, what is it that I could expect in terms of career destinations? It could be, as I mentioned, some of the students in this program choose to continue with PhD. So academia could be an option for you as a next step, or you can work as a practitioner in auditing or consulting, management consulting. Some of my students are working in management consulting sector, for example, and some of the students choose to work in some regulatory authorities, regulatory agencies, for example, Financial Conduct Authority in UK is equivalent of SEC, Security and Exchange Commission in America. So all those different avenues, different options are open to students who study in this master program. There are some core units in, as you would expect, in this master program, as well as elective units. In terms of choices, we try to update our list of elective units so that students will have a wider perspective while studying accounting and finance. As you can see, we have a wide variety of modules. For example, some module about sustainability, which is a huge challenge for our planet facing this climate risk. And we have some colleagues whose research is mainly on sustainability, and they also offer some master dissertation topics about sustainability, for example, so that you can work on a master dissertation focusing on sustainability issues if this is your research, if this is an area of interest for you. And we have also modules like advanced corporate finance, where we study, for example, different types of governance mechanisms, different challenges about corporate policy decision making. For example, currently in UK, investor activism, hedge fund activism are big questions, and we try to incorporate those real world examples to our module, so that students are not going to only learn about what is the textbook information, but they will also think about how they could associate what they learn from journal articles or textbooks, and how could they apply it and associate it with some real world cases. And in behavioral finance, we try to provide some perspective about how cognitive biases of CEOs or managers could influence their corporate policy decision making or fund managers' decision making. We are human beings, and we have all, some kind of biases. So to what extent those biases, psychological sentiments, could influence fund managers' decision making, or CFOs, chief financial officers' decision making. And financial technology module is something that we recently added to our master programs as an elective unit. And what we try to cover in this module is just some different aspects of fintech applications. For instance, something important about Bristol is that, as you might have already know, UK is #1 in terms of number of fintech startups. And London is the main center of startups, fintech startups. But following London, Bristol is #2 in UK or maybe in the world in terms of fintech startups. So what we do in this financial technology is students learn about how different kinds of, for example, platforms could provide alternative sources of financing for small businesses. For example, there is a new startup that is called Prodigy Finance, and its main objective is to offer a platform where students who are interested in pursuing a master degree abroad could have access to financing. So those kind of applicants who do not have credit history could use those fintech platforms and have access to alternative sources of financing, crowdsourcing or different kinds of digital applications. Another master program that we are proud of at Bristol is this master program about banking, regulation, and financial stability. This is a relatively recent program in the sense that we just introduced this a couple of years ago because we could observe that there was a huge demand in terms of understanding what's happening in banking sector and what kind of regulatory rules could help creating financial stability. Until the financial crisis 2007-2008, nobody in our master programs or other master programs in UK cared so much about having a separate master program in banking. But from the financial crisis, we learned that we need to understand banking sector better so that we can understand the decision making of those banks better, and we could come up with an efficient regulatory framework for this sector. So if you are someone who is interested in banking and relevant regulatory framework, then this could be a perfect master program for you in terms of developing your skills and both general finance and banking, and also understanding the role of central banks and international regulatory organizations and the role of commercial banks. So career destinations for this program, it could be, as you could see, central banks, European Central Bank, for example, Bank of England, Federal Reserve, and other central bank across the world, and commercial banks, and also auditing and consulting firms. And if you are someone, again, similar to the previous program, who is interested in pursuing a PhD, then that will be also an important master program for you. Elective units in this program, we have econometrics, which it says econometrics beyond the mean. It provides you with a wider perspective in terms of how you can evaluate impacts of policy changes driven by regulatory framework changes, for example, and how could you establish causality in a way that would be more persuasive than basic econometrics framework. And we have program evaluation and also a module on monetary policy. As you would predict, understanding the nature of monetary policy is quite important to see what would be the interaction of monetary policy changes and how banking sector is influenced by those monetary policy changes. And again, you can have financial technology as an elective unit in this master program. As a third master program, I would like to give you some information about Master in Accounting, Finance and Management. In this module, different from the previous two modules, we have management where you can have some additional modules if you are interested improving on building on your knowledge on management. And so there will be an emphasis on accounting, finance, and also several topics related to management. And in terms of learning outcomes, what you will have is you will have some understanding and improve your understanding in all those areas, accounting, finance, and management. And you will have a chance to improve your conceptual thinking about in those areas, as well as analytical skills, and you will develop a critical approach associating those different areas. And career destinations could be management consulting or accounting firms, and some public service. For example, again, it could be something related to regulatory agencies, or just fund management could be also one of your career destinations. As you can see, we have a wide list of elective units for this program, where you can have some modules related to strategic management accounting, for example, corporate governance and accountability, financial statement analysis and valuation. So those are the modules related to accounting part. And you can also have some modules related to finance, for example, financial markets and investment, corporate finance, international finance. International finance is also quite an exciting area to study, given the recent developments in digital finance and digital currencies. For example, we asked the question, to what extent digital currencies could play an important role in international financial management? To what extent we would observe major changes in international financial management with the introduction or increasing role of digital currencies. And we have also some modules, as you can see, from management, organizational behavior, and digital business or e-commerce business. This module is offered by the management school, and the same thing with organizational behavior. And you will also have a chance to improve your skills, technical skills, quantitative, in terms of quantitative skills, data analytics and data analysis. How could you make sense of data using different software program? And you will also, in all our master programs, during the master dissertation stage, you will have a chance to engage in all those different topics and incorporating your quantitative skills as well as qualitative skills into your master dissertation study. Next, we can move on to Master in Finance and Investment. This master program is mainly for students who had undergraduate studies in finance, econ, or accounting, and those students who are aiming to pursue a career in terms of financial sector and financial management, or, for example, if you might be interested in being a financial analyst or equity analyst, fund management, management consulting, or corporate finance related areas, investment bank kind of opportunities. So this master program could offer different types of career paths for you. Learning outcomes, what should you expect from this master program? You will have some core modules in finance, including asset pricing, corporate finance and derivatives, financial modeling, portfolio management or investment management. And in all those modules, in our master programs, including Master in Finance and Investment, we highlight the importance of applications as well as theoretical part, in the sense that you will use some software programs to analyze the data and come up with a report making sense of this data. So, I mean, this is the age of data. This is the age where you can have access to so much data, and there are so many opportunities in terms of using different types of data in answering questions related to asset pricing, corporate finance, and all those finance related areas. So you will do lots of applications in all those modules. And we have so many different databases, and for example, we have Bloomberg and Thomson's Reuters Econ, but we have also CompuStat database, FAME database. CompuStat database is for mainly US companies. Thomson Reuters Econ provides international data, in the sense that for firms around the world. And we have also merger and acquisitions database, where some of my students, for example, investigate mergers and acquisition activities in UK after Brexit, for example, or in US or in Europe. So it depends on, you know, what is the country or which financial sector you want to focus on. So we have a huge selection of database, because we are quite a large group. We have so many researchers interested in a wide variety of areas, and they offer dissertation topics in those areas, which will require database access to database. But you will find that you will have perfect access to so many different types of databases. Career destinations, it could be, as I mentioned, it could be investment banks or portfolio management, mutual funds, hedge funds, private equity firms, for example. Recently, particularly after the financial crisis, there has been an increase in the role of private equity firms. So those private equity firms, for example, in UK, provide financing for some startups as well as other private companies, and sometimes they engage in mergers and acquisitions. So someone who studied finance and investment and will know, for example, so much about corporate finance and mergers and acquisitions, which would be an important knowledge for private equity sectors, because private equity firms engage in so much in mergers and acquisitions. They target some public companies and they take over and turn them into private companies, for example. And also some of my students, for instance, they go into consultancy companies where they provide consulting services, some client companies. So what are the elective units? As you can see, across our elective units, there are some overlaps, but still you can see there are distinctive characteristics, in the sense that we offer some unique modules for finance and investment students. Credit risk, for instance, is an important challenge for today's financial sector. Given the climate change and climate-related risk, those climate-related risks, in a way, we can think about them as a credit risk. You are a lender, for example, in syndicated loan market. In UK, syndicated loan market is quite huge in the sense that several banks come together and extend loans to some companies. It could be public companies or private companies, but the amount of loans usually in syndicated loan market is huge. I mean, it could go up to billions of dollars or billions of pounds. So when you are extending those loans in syndicated loan market, you need to be careful in the sense that given this climate risk and also all those challenges related to regulatory bodies, in the sense that what kind of regulatory changes could come to the picture after you lend money to this company. Once the regulatory change happens, maybe there will be a negative impact in the profitability of that company, because that company might not be ready to switch to renewable energy, for instance. So credit risk is a huge challenge in today's financial sector. It is both debt markets and equity markets as well. For example, in equity markets, activist investors are putting so much pressure on the management of public companies, particularly, to make sure that they come up with some business model so that they will converge toward net zero, reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, and they will achieve eventually in 10, 15 years of time, they will achieve net zero. So in today's environment, making making sense of all those changes and understanding those challenges is quite important, and credit risk will be an important module. And the same thing with banking as well. In behavioral finance, as I mentioned previously, we just changed the assumption of rational managers. So managers or fund managers or CEOs, CFOs, whoever making those financial decisions might not always make rational decisions. There could be cases where their decision making could be driven by some cognitive biases. So we try to understand that kind of forces when financial decision making is in process. In advanced corporate finance, I also teach advanced corporate finance. What we cover is, for example, corporate policy decision making and governance mechanisms. How do governance mechanisms, for example, institutional investors, who are the major force in UK and US, influence corporate policy decision making? For example, dividend policy or share repurchase decisions, and some stakeholder approach. We call it stakeholder approach in the sense that in today's world, when CEOs or CFOs make financial decisions, corporate policy decision making, they do not only look at what will be the implications for equity holders or debt holders. They will also consider what will be the implications for their employees, their customers and their suppliers, and also overall community as well. So all those stakeholders, including employees, community where the company operates, suppliers and customers will have an important role in management's decision making, in the sense that as a CFO, when I make a corporate policy decision, I will consider what would be the implications of my corporate policy change for all those non-financial stakeholders. Stakeholder framework is quite important in today's world. However, 10 years ago, we did not ask that kind of questions, for instance. And we have also derivatives, stock options, forward contracts. How could you use that if you are a portfolio manager in terms of hedging instruments? So we consider different hedging instruments. In financial management and investment management, in all those modules, we do lots of applications, computer labs. Students are trained in computer labs. So how am I doing in terms of time, Deepika and Jake? Am I doing okay?
I think after this slide, hand back to me, and yeah, I think we should have enough time for questions.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Jake. Okay, now it is over to you. Thank you very much for your attention and all the best. I'm looking forward to your questions. Jake, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Nezhan.
So I will stop sharing, right?
That's great. Yeah, if you can.
Okay.
Cheers.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Nezhan. That was really interesting. And just before we get to the Q&A section of the presentation, obviously we want to make sure you have enough time to ask your questions and have those answered. I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about how we will welcome you as a student here in Bristol and help you to settle in and support you. So firstly, as you can see on the slide here, we are quite an international university. So we actually have students from over 150 different countries in our student population. And over a quarter of those, so we have about 27,000 students, over a quarter of those are from outside the UK. So you're not going to feel isolated in any way. Initiatives to encourage students from different backgrounds, different countries, to get to know one another and learn about each other's cultures, such as our global lounge. And just with regard to students from the sort of Indian region and neighbouring countries, just this year we've had over 400 new students join us for our business courses. So that's courses in accounting and finance management and also economics. When you factor in the undergraduate students or bachelor's students are here for 3 years, that number increases further. So that's just the students that joined us in September 2021. Moving on to the next slide here. As I've mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have a number of sports clubs and societies that you can join to help you settle in. So some of you might be more into your competitive sports and you can join the university level teams for those. But we also have more social things. So you can join societies related to your sports interests, for example, if you just want to play for fun. But we do have some academic related societies too, and some of those are listed on the screen here. The Economics, Finance and Management Society is actually the largest in our student union. So you can expect to meet a large number of friends through that interests. There's also some culture specific societies. I picked out a few here that might relate to the Indian market a bit more. So we have Bollywood dance societies, Hindu societies, Indian societies, etc. In terms of career support while you're a student here with us, we do provide a number of opportunities for you. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and just to reinforce, the University of Bristol is well respected by prospective employers, and we're ranked 49th in the world for employability. But specifically regarding employee reputation for business and management studies, we're in the top 10%. And then in terms of graduate outcomes, 91% of graduates were in graduate level jobs or further study within 15 months of graduating from us. So some pretty impressive statistics there. In terms of the actual support that you would get whilst you're a student with us, of course, we have the normal careers service provision. but they focus not just on helping you prepare in terms of a UK-focused career outlook, but they also specialize in some overseas career outlook focus. So they have fact sheets that provide guidance that's more tailored to students that maybe want to work in India, Southeast Asia, Africa, or China. So the type of support you get can be a bit more tailored towards where you plan to work after you graduate, and not just the UK. Although we appreciate there might be a bit more appeal there due to the graduate immigration route. So the post-study work visa change that would allow you to stay for 2 years after graduating. We also have another service. So most universities will have a career service, but we also have a professional liaison network. This network, or this service, is specific to students in the Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, and the School of Accounting and Finance is part of that faculty. So in terms of the provision that this network and team provide, they try to connect your subject area study with the industry, so you can help connect the dots between academic theory and then the practical implications of what you're learning. So they do that through a number of different ways. So they have international mentoring schemes. So you might be paired up with a mentor from your subject area that currently works in your home country. So you can get some kind of insider information and a bit more advice about how to get into that industry, what to expect, etc. But they also support with internships, placements, and panel talks, all of which increase your exposure and understanding of the industry and perhaps the roles that you might want to go into specifically from your course area. And then last thing from me really before we move on to questions, and something you probably all want to know most about, is our scholarships. So I've got some fantastic news for you in that the University of Bristol does have its own scholarship scheme, and this year, for September 2022 entry, it's our largest ever offering. So we have over £2 million available for international students. And for postgraduate students, this means that there are 3 different award levels. So that's £5,000, £10,000 and £20,000 available. And this would go directly against your tuition fee payments. We have 2 deadlines for you to apply for these scholarships. The first one is coming up this month. It's the 28th of March. And then if you don't make that deadline, there is a second opportunity if you apply by the 13th of June. The good news is that we have a number of scholarships available, and you only need to complete 1 form to be considered for all of those opportunities that you might be eligible for. So just coming on to that on the next page, as well as these centralized Think Big scholarships that we have, we also have ring-fenced scholarships specifically for students that want to study in our School of Accounting and Finance. And that means for master's students, there's 2 £10,000 scholarships and 8 £5,000 scholarships in addition to what I previously mentioned. And these are ring-fenced to you, so you have an increased likelihood of being successful if you apply. And the application form, it's nice and simple. It's all done online. I think Deepika can just share the link to our scholarships page. I'll send that to her now just to share onwards. And we're looking really for people that would be good ambassadors for the university. So if you can demonstrate in your scholarship application anything that you've done that's extracurricular, so perhaps outside of your academic studies, that demonstrates your leadership skills, or how you've taken steps to move towards that you would like to work in, perhaps showing us how you've done research about your course. So what do you like about the course, and doing that at Bristol in particular? Are there any academics that you're really looking forward to studying with? Things like that would really help your application. So just conscious of time now, so let's move on to the Q&A section. But of course, if you can't think of any questions today and you do have some after today's session, please use the details on the slide here. I'll hand back to Deepika now to ask any questions that have come in.
Thank you so much, Jake and Nis, for such a knowledgeable presentation. We are now moving towards the Q&A session. So the first question student is asking, what are the top UK employers post completing your master's degree in accounting and finance?
Okay, so specifically with regard to the Masters in Accounting and Finance?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have on our university website, on our careers pages, you can look up our program like study areas. So you can look at where graduates from our accounting and finance programs have gone on to. I haven't actually got that to hand, but I can find the link and share that after today's session. But I know many of the big four employers obviously are included within that. So PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and Ernst & Young as well. We also have students going to financial service companies like Hargreaves Lansdown too. I don't know, Neslihan, if you are aware of any of your...
HSBC as well, for example. I have many students who took a role in HSBC and as well as accounting firms, but it is not only 4 or 5 major accounting firms. In Bristol, we have other accounting firms as well, small-sized accounting firms and investment management firms. So all those different firms actually, but the big names are and some of them actually investment banks as well. For example, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, all those investment banks, in addition to accounting firms.
Thank you. The next question. Hi team, I am a chartered accountant with nearly 6 years of experience and looking forward to pursue MSc Finance and Accounting, seeking guidance on the application requirement.
Sure. So specifically for the MSc in Accounting and Finance, the admissions team specifically will be looking to make sure you have done 2 units. So that would be financial accounting and management accounting. You have to have done those to be eligible for this program. So if you can make sure that any transcripts you have, whether they're professional qualifications or bachelor degree qualifications, that those are included. They will then look for an additional, usually about 3 or 4 units that demonstrate your experience in accounting and finance, just more generally. But yeah, if you're from an accounting background, then that shouldn't be problematic. In terms of GPA scores, we are looking for a high UK 2-1, so that would be 65% or higher in the UK grading scale. You can contact our India office for what the international equivalent would be for your institution that you studied at, just to check eligibility, etc. So that's the india-office@bristol.ac.uk address.
Thank you. The next question. Can you please tell me about the application visa deadline for 2022 intake?
Yeah, sure. So our usual application deadline is much later in the summer for international students. I think it's the end of July. However, some of our programs do prove quite popular. So in the past, we have had to close admissions a little bit early in order to manage numbers of students on the course. So obviously, if you are interested in applying, I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Not only to get your place on the course, but if you're thinking about scholarship application too, you need to submit your course application before you can apply for the scholarship. So ideally, if you could apply before the 28th of March scholarship deadline, that would be beneficial. And yeah, all of our 4 programs do remain open at the moment to students from India. But I would just recommend, particularly for programs like accounting, finance and management, to apply early because that is quite a popular program.
Thank you. The next question. My graduation is in BA, but I have 2 years of finance experience. Am I eligible for master's?
So is it a Bachelor of Commerce or?
No, Bachelor of Arts. So the students may have done BA English or maybe BA Journalism or Mass Comm, anything,
Okay.
but not related to commerce.
Okay, so 3 out of our 4 programs are what we call specialist programs. And that means that students do need to have a specific subject background in order to be eligible. So for example, accounting and finance, students need to come from either a joint honours accounting and finance degree or have studied accounting or finance. And for banking, it's a similar story. You need to have studied economics or finance, or economics and finance. And for our finance and investment course, it doesn't matter so much about your specific subject background, but it should be a really quantitative subject. So whilst we're not saying you have to have done accounting, finance, or economics, subject areas like computer science, engineering tend to be better suited, just because you'll have a more quantitative background with those mathematical skills. So if you have a BA background, my suggestion to you would be the accounting, finance, and management program, because it is our more generalist course. However, we do still expect you to have a good mathematical ability. So you would need to demonstrate on your previous study transcripts that you have some quantitative and mathematical units, usually at least 3. So I think in a BA degree, it might be quite hard to do that, but do check your transcript. And if you feel like you've got a number of quantitative units, then yeah, please do apply. Yeah, that would be my advice. That would be the most likely program to get an offer.
Thank you. The next question. Can I apply to more than one program at the University of Bristol?
Yes, absolutely. You would need to complete separate application forms. But yes, you can absolutely apply for numerous courses. We do have an application fee, which I believe is £60. I think students from India are exempt from this. So just provide a copy of your passport when you apply, and select the exemption criteria or the waiver criteria. So you shouldn't need to pay an application fee, and you can apply to multiple programs.
Thank you. The next question. Minimum entry requirement for class 12th student for BSc Accounting and Finance Management.
Okay, so for the MSc in Accounting, Finance and Management, it is our most...
Sorry to interrupt. She's asking about BSc. Actually, she's in
sorry.
12th, yeah.
Sure, yeah, okay. Again, I apologize off the top of my head. I don't have the international equivalencies, but I can provide those after today's session. So if that student can contact me, jake.george@bristol.ac.uk, I can give them more detail about that. But in the UK requirement, we require 3 A levels at grade A. But for that particular program, if it's accounting and management, we don't require an A level in maths. It's the only program we don't require A level maths. But we do still require GCSE equivalent of maths. But if they can email me, I can provide specific detail about that situation.
Thank you. The next question. Is any work experience needed for the masters in accounting and finance?
Yeah, I'm conscious I'm answering all of these, but as an entry requirement, it's not required. So the main thing when you're applying for our courses is that you're academically qualified. So your bachelor degree meets our parameters for what we're looking for in terms of the GPA and the right subject background. However, if you do have work experience, it can be helpful, particularly if your grades are a bit more borderline with what we're looking for. Having that work experience can kind of get you over the line sometimes. I think the banking program is the one that's more specifically mentions that work experience is more welcomed. So if you've worked in the banking sector and you want to do the MSc Banking Regulation and Financial Stability course, working in a role such as a broker or working in a central bank can be really helpful.
Thank you. The next question. Is the internship or placement program also for post-graduation?
So in terms of placements, where that's built into your course, that's only available for our undergraduate students. So making a 3-year course, a 4-year program. We don't have like a year-long placement for our postgraduate courses. However, if students are looking to gain some kind of shorter term internship experience whilst they're here, they can go to our professional liaison network that I mentioned, and they will support students to finding roles and experience and connecting with industry during their time here. It's important that I add This is separate to your postgraduate master's course. It's not part of your course. So you would need to be proactive as a student in going to the professional liaison network sessions and asking them for support to get those types of experience. So it would need to be led by you, but it is a free service and we are there to help you.
Thank you. Do you have masters in finance? If yes, what is the fees?
Yeah, the closest we have, as shown in the presentation, is the Masters in Finance and Investments. So the fees can be found on the prospectus page, but I believe it's about £34,000. So it is our most expensive course for that particular program.
Thank you. The next question. I have 3 years of experience in an accounting firm. Can I apply for a PG? Is there any specialized PG for 1 year duration?
So most of our postgraduate programs are specialized, but if this is somebody who already has significant experience in the accounting sector, then I would suggest the accounting and finance program is most suitable for them, because that program is specifically for people who have already come from an accounting background and they're really looking to specialize and become a consultant or a critical practitioner in that area. So if they really want to become like an expert in that area, that's the specialist program that we offer for them. As I mentioned before, to be eligible, we just need to make sure they can demonstrate that they've done management accounting and financial accounting in order to be eligible.
Thank you. The next question. Is IELTS necessary to apply for study abroad, or do you accept Duolingo score instead of IELTS?
Okay, so in terms of getting your visa to study in the UK, all international students would need to demonstrate English language competency. We do accept IELTS, but that's not the only way that you can meet our requirement. So if you have an IELTS, great. But if you don't, we do also accept your CBSE English scores for your 12th examinations. If you go to our language profile pages on the university website, I believe our programs are language profile, I think it's language profile B, but it does say on the prospectus page. If you go to the language profiles page, it will give you a full list of the acceptable qualifications. I'm not sure that Duolingo is still accepted. We did allow it during the pandemic for a brief period because students were having difficulty accessing IELTS tests because the test centres were closed, and Duolingo allowed students to take the test from home. But things like your CBSE scores would be accepted, and IELTS tests are accepted, but do check it out on the University of Bristol website. Just do a quick search for language profiles and you'll find all the detail there.
Thank you. The next question. What are the accommodation facilities available? Do we need to apply separately for those?
For accommodation, did you say?
Yep.
Yeah. So for accommodation, you do need to apply separately. The university does have its own accommodation, and as a first-time student to the university, we do have an accommodation guarantee. So as long as you apply by a specific deadline, you're guaranteed to get a space in university accommodation. It's not guaranteed to be your first choice, but it will be within the university accommodation. I think applications tend to open in May, but you'd be best to look on the university accommodation website to get an idea of what we offer, what's available, because there's lots of different variety in terms of location around the city, but also whether you want shared accommodation, whether you want an ensuite as part of your room, whether you want to be catered or self-catered, single-sex accommodation, alcohol-free accommodation. We have all of these options available to you. That accommodation application does tend to come later in the year. As I say, around May, I think it opens, but we will have further webinars run by the university. So if you apply to one of our programs, you'll start to get messaging through our CRM system that invites you to sessions that give you more general information about accommodation and how to apply and when to apply. So as long as you apply to our courses, you'll get more guidance about that as we go along.
Thank you. The next question, could you give us an idea about the fees?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we had a similar question earlier today, but in terms of fees, it does vary from program to program. Our most expensive one is the finance and investment course, so that is £34,000, just over. But our other programs tend to be, just double checking now, for an international student about £28,000. But do check the prospectus page because it does vary between each program. So check your course that you want to apply for the full detail.
Thank you. I think I've covered all the questions from the chat box. Many thanks for answering all the questions so well and sharing your knowledge with us. We are now moving towards the end of this seminar. I would request if you have anything you would like to put forward for the students who are watching this live right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just from myself, just thank you so much for tuning in. We do really appreciate your interest in the University of Bristol. Obviously, this isn't the only opportunity you have to ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer any follow-up questions you have. And my role is dedicated to the School of Accounting and Finance. So, particularly if your questions are related to that, I'm more than happy to help you. I don't know if Nazlahan, if you have any closing remarks.
Yeah, the same thing for me as well. Thank you for this opportunity to introduce our master programs, and I would be happy to respond to any emails or any questions you might have about our programs. So please feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jake and Nis, for your kind words. To all the audience, if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact our SIUK India offices. We'll be more than happy to help you. And in the end, I would like to say all of you, thank you so much for your valuable time today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.